Alright, we're going to look at paths here. These are the last of the few tools that we have, and you'll find them down here on the floating toolbar. So we're going to start with the pen tool, and the pen tool, you can just left click dots onto the page and it will connect those dots with straight lines. And this is all vector based, so what I'm creating is a shape here, outline, that's going to be defined mostly by a mathematical equation. I can move those points around using the path selection tool and the direct selection tool. The path selection tool is the black arrow. If I bring that, I can move the entire shape around. If I use the direct selection tool, I gotta finish off something first here. It grabs it as well, and it's going to do something else for us in a minute. I'm going to switch back to the convert point tool, and you'll notice when I click on the shape the nodes show up, and if I see how the arrow changes from a white pointy arrow to a little upside down V. So this is the convert tool. When I click on those anchor points, which is what they're called, I left click and I drag, I get these little handlebars, and these handlebars let me create curves, and I can bend those independently. The longer the curve, the more bend, the shorter the curve, the flatter it is, and then moving it left or in circles around the anchor point changes the entry to that point, to that anchor point, so I can change those independently. So I can make a little sharp edge here if I wish. If I click on this next anchor point, I can drag it out and round them out, all sort of like that. I can bend them, put some real neat interesting kinks in them, and do something along that lines. And let's just do them all here so we've got something going on all of them. And there I've taken my original straight lines and turn them into a bunch of curves. If I click off, there's my new path, and you'll notice over here on the path palette it shows up as my working path. Now once I have that, I can do a couple things. I can add a stroke or a color along this line, and I can do that two ways. I can use the path selection tool, click on the path, notice how the little squares show up, right click and go stroke path. And now I have a whole bunch of options. Anything that has a brush applied to it in Photoshop, you see is showing up in here. So I'm just going to leave it as brush for now. Simulate pressure, and I'm going to say OK. What it's going to do is grab this color black here, and it's just going to follow along that path. And there it goes. So I'm going to click off, and because I had this brush over here chosen, and I'll make that a little larger so you can see it. There it is. It's followed the path with that brush, and it's made a kind of a funky effect here. And that's your first application of paths, just using a real simple pattern or design here and then applying a brush stroke to it. You'll notice if I go to my layers palette, I gotta find my layers palette. There it is. I have a background layer now that has this little squiggly black line on it. I can also put, I'll stop there for now. So that's just your first way of looking at paths. I'm going to back up for 1 second on the history palette. The other way of applying a stroke to this, and I'm going to switch over, make sure it's selected, is over here on the path window. You can see stroke path with brush. Over here you have fill path with foreground color. We're going to do that in a second, but for now let's do the stroke path. I click on it and it gives me the same result using whatever brush tool I have active. So I'll back up. If I change brush tools to a different, let's just do a round circle for now. And now I apply the stroke path. You notice I get a slightly different effect because I'm using a different brush. Okay, I'm going to back up one more time, and I'm going to add one more anchor point. I'm going to try to see if I can get it to connect, and let's connect to this one. And now I've completed the path, or I've filled it in completely. So now that I've actually closed the path off, I'm going to take my path selection tool, notice it's all there, and now I should be able to do a fill path with foreground color. So I'm just going to change this color to something red so we can see it, and then when I hit fill, it fills in that shape. I could also do that by selecting the path, right-clicking, and clicking on Fill Path. This is a better way of doing it because you get some more choices. You can put a feather. I'm going to put a feather of 15 on there. It'll be a little smoother edge. I hit OK. Oops, sorry. Try that again here. Fill path, normal. I want foreground color, not background color. That's why. Feather radius of 15. Click on it, and you'll notice I have a soft edge going around that path. If I click off of the paths over here on the window, the path line disappears, and there's my basic shape. So that's a quick path overview using stroke to give a line around the outside and fill to fill the inside of a closed path.